I'm Chris Woodfield. I'm on the NANOG program committee and a longtime hackathon organizer, participant, committee member, developer, what have you. And we're here to discuss the future of the NANOG Hackathon. There we go. Oh, I'm holding it wrong. There we go. Okay. So our slide deck is a bit minimal, but just to get you started. So the NANOG Hackathon came into being around 2016. And it started simply as a request from one of our sponsors asking if, hey, we got this idea, can we have a room for this? And at the time, we said sure, and we gave them a room on Sunday, and we blocked out a 30-minute presentation slot for a recap of the hackathon. And that partner, it was Meta, Facebook Meta, handled the content, did a training session, and they did this for about a year and a half. I believe there were 3 or 4 of them that were run this fashion. And that was our first stab at this. And I joined, actually I wasn't even on the program committee yet at the time, but I joined as a participant. And then from there, when that sponsor decided that they couldn't participate at that level anymore, they handed responsibility and the reins of the hackathon back to the program committee. At that time, we formed a subcommittee under the program committee for the hackathon, and over the ensuing years, we tried a number of different formats for it, and some more successful than others. But the reason that we're here is that over time, it seems that first off, 2 challenges. First off, it seems that ongoing participation, particularly post-COVID, had waned a bit. Prior to COVID, the hackathon had been a one-day event and seemed to be gaining popularity from meeting to meeting. Like everything else during COVID, everything went virtual. And frankly, we've been struggling to get that interest back as we've returned to in-person meetings. It seems like the old formats don't seem to be working anymore. And coming from the other direction, we now have I'm not going to call it a mandate, but at this time, an in-person hackathon and with dedicated space on Sunday prior to the meeting requires a paying sponsor. So if any of you are interested in bringing in sponsorship for the hackathon and having your name on the slide as we announce everything else, please talk to NANOG staff about that. So this is where we are now. We did not have a hackathon this NANOG because of the sponsorship requirement. We were unable to procure a sponsor, and we bounced around some ideas whether or not to do it virtually versus a modified in-person, and we landed on the format of, okay, let's step back, regroup, revisit, and use this forum for community input to find out what we think a better format, a different format for a successful hackathon going forward might look like. And from there, I'll hand it over to Charles.
So Charles Rumford, I'm on the program committee and on the subcommittee for the hackathon. So we started, as Chris mentioned, we decided to take some time before NANOG to take off for NANOG 89 and reevaluate what the hackathon is, what we're trying to serve, things of that nature. But I'm actually going to ask Steve to either go up to a mic or come up here regarding some important information about the future of the hackathon.
Hey, Steve Feldman from the board. I work for Paramount. I have to say that because they're paying my way. So the board has been looking at this too, obviously. We're the ones saying that there needs to be some sponsorship dollars to come in to support it. But the big thing that we're doing to help support this as well is right now the hackathon is run by a subcommittee of the program committee. We are going to vote in our next meeting to split that out to a full ad hoc committee separate from the program committee. Initial membership will be the same, but that means that going forward, we can appoint people who are not on the PC to also help with the hackathon. So consider this a shameless plug to all of you in this room to consider volunteering when the All for Volunteers comes out probably in January. We one of the things that I'm sure that the committee will be helped by having voices that are not just from the PC perspective, but from the broader community perspective as well. So that's really my big plug and my news.
Thank you, Steve. So I'm excited for us to have the full committee status for working on this, which is exciting. But I wanted to share some of the thoughts that we've been having internal to the subcommittee about moving forward with the hackathon. The major one is we want to provide a little more structure to the hackathon. We've over the last couple of years we have gone for more of a self-directed model and provided like a theme, IPv6, automation, and I think that I personally think that those are they're great, but they leave a lot to get done in 1 or 2 days. Building infrastructure, building out everything, figuring out what you're going to do, coming up with an idea. And then I think it also limits who feels comfortable coming to the hackathon and doing work at the hackathon, because if they're new to the space, they're new to the programming space, new to the automation space, they may not feel like they have the skills to jump off and do something. So one of the thoughts is to provide a little more framework, a little more guidance, prompts type thing for the hackathon. One of the other thoughts is, in conjunction with that, is to keep the like self-directed model kind of as a conjunction. So like if you showed up, you could be like, oh, I had this great idea that I could go and run with, but like also for the new people or people who are like, I just want to like write code and I don't know what I want to do. There's some like prompts to help with. One of the other thoughts we also had was working with sponsors that might have some kind of product or API or something like that that we could integrate into the prompts to kind of give people exposure to various services, various tools, things of that nature as part of the hackathon also. And then there's also, following some discussions between the committees this weekend, there's also some talk about possibly integrating some more educational components into it. So these are all like ideas that have been floating around amongst the subcommittee and board members for the last couple of months. But what we ultimately landed on was we need community input. We can all stand in a room and be like, this is what we think the community needs, and then do it and no one show up. And so one of the things that I personally want to make sure we're doing is meeting and fulfilling a need or an interest from the community. So that's why we're having this session. So at this point, I want to make sure we leave enough time is to get any ideas about what we can do from if what needs people might have from a like a programming automation hackathon-y type thing, or if anyone has any ideas of how we might go about running a hackathon in the future. The notebook is the pen and notebook are at the ready, and I'd be interested to hear if anyone has any input.
If I wasn't already on stage, I'd be walking up to a mic right now.
Okay.
I'll mention two things that I think have changed notably from the initial version of the hackathon. As as we had been running it, the pre-COVID version compared to the post-COVID version of the hackathon. And not a terribly large change in format, but a few details that were notable to change. One is that, as I think there was mentioned in the last session here, the NCI program. A lot of the hackathon participants historically have been attendees who are here via the NCI program, and the fact that we haven't seen nearly the participation in NCI as we have pre-COVID, I think, is a major factor in the decreased interest in hackathon participation. The other thought, and one thing that we changed notably in response to COVID, but kept this part of the format, is that originally the version of the hackathon that we had been running pre-COVID. Teams formed, presented a project, and then we voted on winning projects. And the teams that won the hackathon, for lack of a better term, then were given an opportunity to present their project in the general session. That is a big carrot if you're just starting out your career, or if you're looking for a job. I mean, there are dozens of people in the audience, probably with open head count, looking for people with smart ideas. And I think that's a compelling carrot for prompting people to participate. We got rid of that because COVID didn't really make for a good format for voting on talks, because different people had different constraints over their ability to participate. But then when we went back to in person, we never brought that back. I'm curious if changing that might renew some interest.
My name is Boyd Stevens. I'm with the ID5 Cyber Group. Your inquiry, yes, that's part of what made the previous hackathon so much fun, is when you get a team together and you're being pitted against Facebook or Meta and some of the big boys, and you wipe the floor up with them, right? That was just really neat. And then you come the next day and you get to stand before the group during the general session. I do have a couple of questions. And the cost, what does that typically look like? You all said sponsorships. You have any ideas roughly on cost?
I will defer that to Mike Costello from the board.
Hello, Michael Costello. I'm with DriveNets. I'm also on the board. So the hackathon, the two costs that are associated with it are the AV equipment that goes into the room, and then the food and beverage that's provided to the participants. So at the projected budgets for this year, if we had it, would be about $11,000 per event. So it's something like $33,000 per year in the hackathon. So it's a considerable cost.
Thank you. The second item, I was curious, has there been any conversations around whenever we go to a city that the NANOG U be a part of the hackathon, where we bring in university students, college students, and that be their introduction to the NANOG organization? That would be the other thing. And then I guess my final question, I understand the cost, and I don't know if that can be distributed across multiple days, but we do a lot of hackathons in my neck of the woods. And we found if there's an advantage sometimes to extending it to more than one day. I know for us, Sunday that day, so I think one of my colleagues from Internet 2 is here. We won the hackathon, I think, was it 83 that we won? 82, 83, whichever it was. The next hackathon, we were on our way to winning, but about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the mommies start calling people home.
Yeah.
Because that's that day that the family can get out and go see some things. So I was curious if we could maybe extend it out, smaller segment of time, multiple days.
Yeah, so we actually have thought about both of those things.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we've actually thought about both of those things. Chris mentioned to talk about the local university component. Chris did mention the NCI program as one of our former largest, contributors of participants for the hackathon, and we've started to see a decline in that. There has been some thoughts about reaching out to local universities in the areas that we go to and being like, hey, we're doing this networking hackathon. Do you have some students who might be interested in it or want to come and, see what's going on, something like that. So that has been thought about. I will say that as a 100% volunteer-driven organization, there is a point where, someone has to spend time making those contacts and reaching out and calling and organizing on top of whatever else they may be doing. I will also say that with the hackathon becoming its own committee, then those members aren't bound to other responsibilities as much. So there might be a little more opportunity for handling that, but it's definitely something we've thought about. With regards to time, I think COVID, we started doing like the introduction like 2 weeks before, right? And then typically the Saturday before is like a virtual day where like if you're traveling or if you're whatever. And then with moderators and mentors available via a Zoom channel. And then Sunday was typically our in-person day, and then we would present at the end of the day. One of the things that we've also talked about was not making the end of the day Sunday the deadline. Maybe making Monday night the deadline or Tuesday at lunch the deadline. And then maybe having a table with hackathon mentors that they could go to throughout the conference and interact with, making that judgment on like Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday night, and then presenting on Wednesday. So again, providing more opportunity, more time without it, taking up bulk schedule time. So does that, cool. The man at the other microphone.
Hey, yes. Alistair Strachan, Ripe NCC. We host quite a few, or well, I say we, I don't, but the organization does quite a few hackathons. And just to reiterate a few points that people have mentioned earlier, I think the academic route is a very good way. We always hit up, we have a program called RACI, which is an academic kind of program which reaches out to students and gets them to our events. We find with hackathons, if we do approach, especially if we know where we're going at an event. So normally we have a hackathon around a RIPE meeting or a NCC day or one of the other events we host. We'll hit up the universities in that area. We'll hit up the student institutions, the research institutions, all of those. I'm aware that we have someone who is able to do that as an employee as opposed to a volunteer because it does take time. But I think that is a really valuable way, especially if I feel there's a big push at the minute in all of our communities to attract fresh, young blood for us to feast on. So I think the academic route is definitely an interesting, or the best way forward. There was another thing that I've completely, sponsorship. We often do them with a co-host. So as opposed to just, give us money, we'll actually have a co-host for our hackathons. So they also provide support in regards to reaching out to people and getting sponsors on top of them being a co-host. So that's something be an idea.
Can I actually turn a question back to you? And feel free to deflect if you don't know, is how do you guys structure your hackathon? Is it like, here's a topic or here's a technology, or do you guys have like prompts to kind of help guide someone through components of it?
Kind of. I don't organize them, so I can't give the full 100% answer on this, but
that's fine.
I know certainly the ones that I've been to, it's normally focused around a topic.
Okay.
And then it's kind of do what you like. We did a quantum internet one recently, and it was someone came up with a video game. Yeah, as I say, I'm not the person who organized them, so I can't give you the full rundown, but I can certainly get that info. And people.
Would that be information I could get from you offline?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sweet.
Yeah. Yes.
And so
we've fashioned the hackathon. Most recently, we've been around you know, specific projects, making contributions to open source projects. We've had sponsors of open source projects come in with lists of bugs that they would like to form a team to help work through, or documentation to add, or use cases to new use cases to come up with. More recently, that's been Netbox, which is a ostensibly open source, but supported by a for-profit company. So not strictly a nonprofit open source project, but they've come in with API use cases and invited team members to build against their APIs to create interesting new use cases in code. I think the difference is that now, if we were to, and that, I think that fits the co-host model that Alistair mentioned. I think the difference is that now at that time we're asking for a formal sponsorship instead of an ad hoc.
I just wanted to, I'm sorry, that's a very good question, which I forgot to answer in the last meeting entirely. My name is Barry Cook, and I'm representing myself, my own consulting LLC. I have to say that in 2020, I attended during COVID for the first time, and it helped me get back into the networking industry. So I'm not sure I would have attended had it been super competitive at the time. And so I think there's a place for both, maybe a hybrid model where there's a competition and then also a more educational. Here's a non-competitive arena in which to just learn how to do some of this stuff. And I would volunteer to give tutorials on GitHub or something if that's what people need, because I didn't know anything about it back then. So
that actually raises a question I was actually going to pose, which is I think there's some non-competitive conflicting thoughts about what the hackathon should be covering. Is it a space for people to come in and like flex their programming muscles, or is it an opportunity for someone to level up in something? And so I guess the question I have is there a thirst for content around like leveling up programming skills that maybe NANOG needs to potentially address in a different fashion?
yeah, or could it be like a kind of a co-event or something, like on programming and GitHub in this little mini room, and then breakout room or something? I don't know.
With sufficient participation, there's certainly room for both.
Yeah.
I guess that's the question. Like, are you trying to get back the people who want to flex their programming muscles, or are you trying to bring in new people? And some new people, if you go to a university, a computer science program or something, yeah, they're going to want to flex their muscles. But then if you're trying to get network engineers who don't know how to program and help them program and help it not be scary, because otherwise they're just going to go back and enter things in a CLI, which I've seen recently where people don't even want to think about automating that reason. But I don't know. I guess I think both are, I think they should both be part of the mission. I don't know. That's my opinion.
No, totally.
Yeah, sure. I'll use the logo. My name is John Brown. I'm with Team Cumry in the outreach side. So make friends, help them learn new things, blah, blah, blah. I'm wondering whether or not this concept of the hackathon and what the young lady just said a moment ago with regards to leveling up skills, if this could somehow be morphed a little bit into what I mentioned yesterday in the board candidate review, which is how do we get more young folks involved and get them up to speed on the technologies that are used to run an internet, right? We have coding from whether it's a deployment scripts and learning Ansible and these kinds of tools for automation of provisioning, automation of security things, etc., to how do you spell BGP? What do you care about BGP? What do we need to learn about that? What are some things about, IPv6 addressing schemes? What's the behind the scenes of RPKI? What's the behind the scenes of other kinds of services and functionalities that are needed to build? And I think it was either of you, either on stage or you, that mentioned, well, if we had enough participation, we could have like maybe little breakout rooms. And I was just thinking, we could take a room like this and turn it into, I don't know, 10 or 15 10-person rounds, tables, and each table is sort of a functional area. Get people up, and then that would allow you to bring in new talent, fresh blood, and they could look around and go, oh, that's what routing is. Let me go over and talk about that and learn a little bit about routing. I don't care about that. I really care about this over here. Let me go look at that and see what that is. And it's some way of invigorating, and it's like going to college unannounced, undecided, right? You're going to that first year, you're like, well, what am I going to do? So how do we bring in? Because I'm personally, having been doing NANOG on and off since NANOG 10, I'm worried. I'm getting old. Those are getting old. So how do we?
If it makes you feel any better, I'm 36 and I'm worried about the next round of people coming.
Awesome.
Like,
How do we?
Your
bring
concern is
on
noted.
the next, keep that group going, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just hackathon. I think it's also a charge to the PC.
yeah, no, it's a getting younger generations into NANOG has been a floating topic of conversation that I have had with numerous people at various NANOGs in some capacity for the last 2 years. It's actually been a pretty major topic at this NANOG in particular in various forums. Yes.
Doug McDuff, i3d.net, speaking for myself. My first interaction with NANOG was actually Hackathon 86 in Hollywood. I've only been to now 2 NANOGs, both local, but I did attend the Hackathon 87 virtually, and it's a bit of a different experience, but I spent a good while with Chris debugging the lab, and that was a lot of fun. So being able to work directly with the mentors live was fun and made the virtual more engaging. On the topic of the college engagement space, the tone has been borderline elitist. Everybody's referring to universities, etc. And I actually went to a UC and then went back to community college to get real world skills.
Yeah.
And so I think you can probably also reach a lot more community colleges, like reaching out to a central office, and they say,
Yeah.
oh, we've got these colleges in this area, let me blast to the computer science departments. And also you get people that are looking for a second career in a community college, and networking's not necessarily always the sexiest field, so to
I
speak.
don't know what you're talking about.
Sorry, it is, but you have to experience it first.
Yeah.
And so that you can possibly hook people there that are looking for what is my second career. Okay, I didn't have a university internship at Apple, Meta, whatever. What can I do in IT? This networking thing. There's a free program on a weekend that I got an invite from my community college department. They said, "Oh, it's free. It's awesome." I think that's actually a potential avenue that's worth exploring, because you get a different group, and a group that's looking for very practical skills.
Just to comment on that, and I will try. Having worked in higher ed for 15 years, I automatically go to the word university as a blanket statement for anything that is post high school, which is not a fair word to be using.
Higher ed outlook.
Yeah. I mean, I also went to a community college for a portion and have served on advisory boards at community colleges, and they are excellent sources of places to pull participants from. But yeah, no, one of the thoughts I had was, your standard college, university, 4-year programs, but also diving in and looking at the community colleges, especially the ones that are potentially offering the Cisco Academy stuff. I don't know what the appetite would be, but even diving into some of the high school vocational programs at a junior or a senior level might yield some things. But yeah, no, these are all written on the notes list of ponderances to ponder.
Another organization I got involved with almost by accident was the Cyber Patriot program. It's a cybersecurity focus, but they do have a networking component sponsored by a certain Teal, formerly Teal.
What was that organization again?
The Cyber Patriot competition. They have an annual cybersecurity competition for high school students.
Okay.
But they also have a strong element of that that's tied to the various JROTCs, the Sea Cadets, and Civil Air Patrol, and they also, so there's strong programs there. No, there are interesting programs there.
Yeah.
Strong, maybe.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for the information. Yep. We'll go over there.
No. I'm sorry.
I just
The man on the left
Need
has
to flip a
yielded to the
coin.
person on the right.
go first because you were first.
All right. One is an idea that just hit me while I was listening to the other gentleman talk for a second, which is maybe the hackathon isn't so much a singular thing. It's if we break up, how do you build a network? What are the different things necessary to build a network? And back to the idea I had of different round tables. They're working on different aspects of spooling up a network in the room. And so the culmination is getting a network running. So we're talking about, hey, there's these things called internet exchanges. Hey, there's these things called transit. Are you a transit provider? Are you an eyeball provider? Are you content? What are the different aspects, right? And different tables are working on building, maybe hands-on, that kind of infrastructure and gluing it together. Point two is I work with an association called EAA, Experimental Aircraft Association, and we do these things called Young Eagle flights. So basically, as a pilot, we fly, if you're from 7 to 18, we will give you free flights in a general aviation airplane to get you hopefully hooked into flying. And it works. It works really well. We have flown millions of kids nationwide over the 20, 30 years that the program's been around. Maybe we need to look at something like that, because if you can spark the interest of a sophomore or junior or a senior in high school and get them going, oh, that's cool shit. Pardon me. Whoops. Couldn't say that. By the way, that's an acronym, special hire. If you get them involved early and get them loving or understanding or sparking that interest, the sooner we can do that, the better, right? Because they're looking for direction too.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is, as a former ISC squared CISSP instructor, to the extent that I can get the ability to show up to NANOGs on a more regular basis, I'd be willing to take those domains that we have in the CISSP environment and help try to educate people on them. Not saying I want to do a CISSP training class, no. But how do we help folks start to think about those different domains and how they apply from a security and a networking perspective? So I'm willing to help give back.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's something I really...
And I can show people how to configure routers and stuff like that too.
One of the big things I think about when I'm interviewing engineers is like, can they think at a higher level about various topics as like building block pieces? So
And there's definitely when people go out building things, I don't care where you are, but or where you are in your career, but there's always a bit of endorphin rush when that first ping or that first web page load or the first time something compiles, and that's a moment that we want to foster and help people get to, because that's where you hook them.
The aha moment. As a former college professor, the aha moment is amazing.
I don't know. Is this on? Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So Barry Cook again. I really like that idea, and I think what we could call it maybe is a lab or something, because that's really what I think would bring in people that don't, if they are computer science major or associate degree. Pursuing an associate's degree in that or something, they may not have heard of network engineering, and so they don't know what all this stuff is. And getting the chance to actually use it, I think, is what the hackathon, or if we call it a lab or whatever, that's the value that would bring, is having a place to actually do that. And I like the idea of all the tables of different subjects, and you can just pick what sounds interesting to you or what you don't know about and what you need a chance to play around with. And then to Doug's comment about community colleges, and somebody in the DEI meeting before mentioned that they work with a lot of, I can't remember what Karen said she worked for. Does anyone remember who was here? But she worked with a lot of other colleges, like historically Black universities and colleges, and skills training programs and stuff, and trying to connect with those kinds of organizations would also bring in people that might be totally unaware of what network engineering is, and not know how to code maybe, but be interested in it, and getting the chance to do that in a safe environment. And then also have the competition for people from like the Metas and smaller companies that want to compete against Meta and have a good time. And so, I guess that's it. Oh.
Yeah, I will share a little bit of a personal thing, which is I stumbled into networking because I needed a job out of college at the university I was going to, because I still needed to finish my degree. And I was like, if I work at the university, I won't have to pay for the credits. And the only job the IT department had open was the networking position. And that's how I became a wireless engineer. Good.
Douglas MacDuff again. I like hearing the lab, the roundtable hands-on discussion topics, because I do think those are more accessible for the new talent you're trying to bring in. I do see a place for the competitive thing. It does provide like a something to strive for in addition, or to justify the big folks sending their people to it. But I do see a lot of value in the lab and kind of educational, teach people as they go, rather than just assume that when they show up, they'll be ready to hack.
Thanks.
Sorry, my brain keeps flowing in with ideas.
I hear you should join the hackathon committee in January.
Oh my God. So I just put on my business hat for a moment and money hat. So money guys on the board should be listening to this. So on the funding of all of this, right? So possibly the idea of these tables is that you can take the aggregate cost of putting on the event, whatever we call the event, and now you can divide that up, right? So you could get like Lynx or DKIX or Amzix or somebody like that funding the peering table, the internet exchange table, right? You could get somebody like, I don't know, maybe Flex Optics, if they're around somewhere, to to fund or sponsor a table on optical interconnect, et cetera, right? And so the dollars at each one of those sponsors is a much smaller dollar, makes it a much easier ask when you go into management and you go to say, hey, instead of I need 20 grand to sponsor the hackathon, it's like, hey, we need 5 people to come up with $3 grand a pop.
Right.
That's a much easier thing to swallow from a dollars and cents perspective.
Yeah.
So just a thought there.
So to go on that also, with sponsorship is a conversation that comes up a lot, and one of the things that comes up in sponsorship conversations is return on investment for the sponsorship. The question that's kind of been floated a little bit is it of interest to potential sponsors or employers to be a part of the hackathon as a source of recruitment for jobs?
I look at it as it's a partial investment in their future. People deciding, I'll just use links as a straw example because I like using real examples as opposed to fake examples. If Links was supporting a table on how to build an internet exchange or what an internet exchange is, they're helping educate the people that in 3 years, 5 years are going to be deciding on buying ports, right? And why they should be there, whether they go to enterprise or they go to service provider network. They're the ones that are going to be potentially, right? It's like what Intel did in New Mexico a billion years ago. They built a fab and they started making chips, but they realized they didn't have the skill set. So they went and built a high school and then gave it to the city. That way the high school could generate out people of enough quality that they could hire, make chips, right? So yeah, I think there's a return on investment there. It may not be a short return, but it's a mid-game, long game. And then yeah, I think you could also have somebody technical from a sponsoring technology area show up at the table to help guide them, mentor them, talk about what the stuff is, etc.
Cool. Thanks. Yes.
Hi, Mauricio Rojas. I'm looking for myself. I'm working at Nokia. Basically, network people, when you are working with code and you are trying to fix any bug on any existing project right now in open source, is pretty hard. I did that myself. I did coding. I'm not actually a big of an expert. But try to push your code and try to fix something. Take a lot of time for yourself to just understand the application, see all the details. You don't get too much help from the people that actually is owning the project. And from my point of view, the education should be the principal objective of the hackathon, more than try to compete and just fixing bugs for some existing applications. For my experience, I got only in one hackathon here. It was a little confusing to try to choose what project to do. It wasn't so much information also online in order to try to make it work. I have to go myself to talk with the people and try to get a little more information about that. Then I chose the project actually I did. I would say that documentation I think is very important. Other experiences that I got with hackathon, with network professionals, I got two internally in Nokia. One was very successful. We got a full room of people. Everybody was newbie and in coding, but what we did is we built many use cases like interconnection, data center, MPLS, and many stuff we container lab and were very basic, but for the people, they could start working with different use cases and learn from that. That was good. And more to understand how to use Container Lab because they were professionals. They understood very well PLS and all those technologies, but they didn't. They are very scared to go and try to do something, with solutions like Container Lab. Other experience that I got is somebody presented a project for 1 hour, all the code. Everybody left after the presentation, and no one actually helped with the code later. And if you have good documentation for the use cases, and you can use the hackathon even to start building those use cases and start documenting those use cases, and you can actually choose who the best. But what I'm saying is, you have more documentation, more information online, it's much easier for you to go and engage in those kind of activities.
Cool. Thank you very much for that insight. Mike?
I know we're right at time, so I'll keep this really quick. Michael, Drive Nuts board. There were a couple of really good suggestions. John was making some, and now he left. The thing that I would encourage everybody here to do is, like, people here care about this stuff, and the hackathon committee, for its openness or for its coming up with something to do, coming up with a specific theme or a specific activity to do, really it comes down to the people that are there and doing the things that they want to do. So everybody here should either come and work, and also invite other people to come and work. The final thing is kind of logistics. So to realize John's vision, you have to get a lot of people there in order to break into these different pieces. And so there has to be this grassroots effort to be able to get people to come in and start doing these things. And then the final logistical piece is conference technically starts on Monday, but the hackathon starts on Sunday. And I've been advocating to say the conference starts on Sunday. The general session starts on Monday. But in doing that, there's logistics that we have to worry about in terms of, well, how many rooms do we have available to people to arrive at the hotel on Saturday? And so like it becomes this like logistical challenge that we're going to have to solve over the next couple of nanogs. So if in February we don't have an amazingly retooled and popular hackathon, please don't think of it as a failure. But if we don't have a retooled, popular, well-attended hackathon by the following February, then I think we can say that we've had a failure.
Yeah.
So like work with us to make sure that it improves like over the next, that it significantly improves over the next 3 hackathons.
Fill out your surveys. That's the best we like. I know we all stand up here and are like, fill out your surveys, fill out your surveys. It really is how the various committees get feedback from various things. Anyway, we are over time, and I'm standing between you and lunch, and that's not a great place to stand. But I want to thank everyone for coming. This has been really great information and input. If you have any more ideas, feel free to reach out to anyone on the program committee, and we'll probably try to get a hackathon email address set up so that people can provide more input. But thank you all for coming. Thanks.
We have hackathon-support@nanog.org.
Yes,
which
that
is
one.
The current hackathon committee members.
Is that with dashes in hackathon or without dashes in hackathon?
Hackathon-support@nanog.org. I'm trying to articulate so that.
Thank you very much, Val.
And watch out for the call for subcommittee participation that we'll be seeing in January.
Yes.
So thank you.
Thank you.